Hey, everybody, it is Friday, and that means it's time for, wait for it, there's no crying in crochet. Okay, now before we get to business, we- we're doing our best here today. We're going to skip what's up with this week because what's up this week is that we're both sick. So we're going to hope that we make it through this episode. Um, and you're going to help us out with that, right?
Yes.
But before we start, I'm a base oh wait, I'm Debbie from Madam Stitch and I'm a base. And this is my cohort in crime.
I guess I'll be the baritone. Because I'm definitely not a soprano this week. So yeah, Deb and I have discovered that we are both struggling to talk this week. But yeah, I'm Biz from Busy Crochet. I'm sorry, I just realized I forgot to say my name.
Well, we have a presentation today,
We do.
which will keep us from forgetting stuff, right?
Yes.
So, all right, before we get to moving on, subscribe to our YouTube channels, Busy Crochet and Madam Stitch Crochet. Because you'll get notified every time we schedule one of these events or upload a new tutorial
Mhm.
or anything like that. And then if you happen to be watching on Facebook, make sure that you give StreamYard permission to display your name so we can see you as you comment. Um, we don't need home remedies. Biz has been doing this for 2 or 3 weeks. I got hit like a train on Wednesday, so 2 days ago. We got this covered. I have my tea with honey and lemon.
Yeah, no,
Cough, cough.
home remedies definitely wouldn't touch it this one because I just had a chest X-ray yesterday to make sure it wasn't pneumonia, and I don't have pneumonia. Hallelujah. So I'm on like dioxycycline, which is a really strong antibiotic, and it's my second round of antibiotics. So I mean, this has been a bit of a hummer.
Yeah, so that's the down and dirty.
That's the 411.
And hey Dawn.
Hi,
I'm gonna
Dawn.
say hi. Yeah. So that's I'm just gonna show it. That's what's up this week.
that is it.
That's all. Yeah, we did Easter. It was great. You were sick. It was
I was
great.
sick. I couldn't even go to
All
church.
right.
I was so sick.
Okay. So this week we decided that our crochet skills episode should be another round of talking about repeats because those little buggers are difficult, right?
It
So
can be
this
very.
week we're doing a little bit more in-depth look at those repeats. And I did a presentation so that we could have some visuals up here. So
Okay.
make sure that you watch this episode in full screen mode. I tried to get the text larger, but sometimes it's hard to read if you're not in full screen mode. So repeats, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have repeats? Well, we have repeats because we'd be reading novels, trying to make our crochet patterns instead of a very concise line of instruction.
Right.
So repeats were created to give kind of a concise shorthand for the instructions when some of the instructions are repeated.
Mhm.
Um, so, what we wanted to do today was go a little bit more in depth about what those symbols mean. We wanted to talk about flat circles because there's a special formula for those,
Mhm.
and just give you some tips and tricks about how to make repeats easier to work with, right?
Mhm.
So, if you're in full screen mode, we're going to start our presentation. All right. So there are, oh, I lost Biz. Where did Biz go? There you are.
She's not here anymore.
There you are. You flew away. Um, all right. So there are a number of symbols that I'm sure you know. that are used in repeats. And what I did here was I wanted to give you some examples of how those symbols are used. One of the most common ones is the asterisk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the single asterisk is the one that we know the most, but a double asterisk is used somewhere in that repeat when the final iteration of that repeat doesn't finish the repeat. So
Right.
that double, excuse me, that double asterisk indicates where to stop
Yep.
in the final repeat.
Yep.
All right, so example number one. This is common.
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's an asterisk, then the instructions that are to be repeated, then a semicolon, and then repeat from the asterisk across or around or the number of times, that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? In example number two, I inserted a double asterisk so you could see that chain two, single crochet in the next stitch, and double crochet in the next stitch. That's the entire repeat. But the last time you get to the repeat, you're only going to do the part that says chain two, single crochet in the next stitch. And that caveat is there at the end, ending the last repeat at the double asterisk,
Yeah, and don't
right?
don't let the double asterisk confuse you with it being in the middle of the repeat like that. The always read the instructions as carefully as you can, because when I first started crocheting, I would get really tripped up by stuff like this, not realizing that the asterisk itself was the full repeat all the way across to the semicolon, and that ending the last repeat at the double. So just remember that even though that's right in the center of it all, make sure you read all of the instructions so that you understand what that extra set of asterisks is for.
Exactly. Now this particular brand of repeat is written differently by a lot of different designers. This right here is kind of the industry standard, but you'll find that different designers will write it different ways. Basically, it means what you need to be looking for is where does the asterisk start
Yeah,
and where does the repeat end,
yeah.
right? So if you figure that out, then you know what's repeated. One that I see a lot is instead of having that semicolon,
Hmm.
a designer will put an asterisk at the beginning and an asterisk at the end. And then they'll say repeat from asterisk to asterisk across or a certain number of times, that sort of thing. Excuse me.
That comes very close to using parentheses, but this you will find for sure in it just depends on the designer, because some of them, like myself, I use a lot of brackets and parentheses and asterisk. I mean, like, I use all of it, but for
Right.
repeats, I have a tendency not to use the asterisk because that's just not how I. That's not that was not the way that I understood it the best when I started writing. So,
Yeah, when I started writing patterns, I used an asterisk exclusively. And
mhm,
as I got kind of developed my pattern writing skills and style, I realized that the parentheses, the brackets, and the braces were a lot more dependable in what they meant.
yeah,
So those asterisks can be misunderstood.
yeah, they can be, but you will find them very commonly in patterns. So it's good to know what they mean.
Exactly. And if you don't know what they mean, reach out to the designer.
Oh,
Remember,
for
the
sure.
designer, right? The designer is there to help you. All right.
Yep.
Next up, parentheses. All right. So the parentheses are used for a lot of different kinds of repeats. but the industry standard is that they're used for stitch counts at the end of a row or a round, or they're used to indicate a group of stitches that are going to be a group of stitches like this that
Mhm.
are worked in the same stitch,
Mhm.
right?
I
What
usually
you
use
see,
them for like corners and things like that.
right? Yeah, and I have a tech editing client who does a lot of blankets in rows,
Mhm.
and she'll combine stitches
Mhm.
and she'll have several stitches worked in the same stitch. So she puts all of that in parentheses.
Gotcha.
Now, again, designers will do what they want with parentheses,
For sure.
and you'll see these interchanged with
Uh-huh.
brackets and with braces. Um, look in the abbreviations section or the special stitches section to see if that designer tells you how they're using their parentheses.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea to actually add to patterns. Any designers out there, just for thoughts, because it helps to remove extra questions that people might have to ask you, especially if you are a bracket brace or what's the other one? Parentheses.
Parentheses, brackets, and
Parentheses, brackets,
braces.
and braces. Yeah, I just call them the squiggly brackets because I
Yeah,
always forget what they're called.
I know. I
But
know. And actually, braces, we'll get to it in just a second, but braces actually function exactly like brackets,
yes, yes.
but they're outside of brackets. So, anyway, we'll look at that in just a second.
All righty.
All right. So, those are parentheses.
Mm-hmm.
Next, the beloved bracket is used to indicate instructions that should be worked a certain number of times.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say, you'll see it in example two. I will also say across the row.
Uh,
So if I've got a big blanket with a lot of repeats, instead of making someone count it, I'll just say across the row. So
yeah.
you'll see there that the bracket opens, skip 2 stitches, then I have parentheses around,
You have a quarter
what's worked in the same stitch, right?
or a fan.
Skip 2 stitches and single crochet, and then that's
Mhm.
worked 10 times or how many times the designer has told you to work it,
Mine
right?
typically looks like example one.
Mhm. Yep. And notice it would be very weird to have the parentheses replace the brackets. So you generally don't want to have 2 sets of parentheses. So I would never replace those brackets with parentheses, and I would never put the parentheses in place of the brackets and
Mhm.
put the brackets in place of the parentheses because parentheses go farther in, brackets go farther out.
Mhm. Yeah, I always use the brackets for outside. That's like the whole thing, shebang. And then I do
Yep.
different work with parentheses. But I will say I do use braces on the inside of my brackets as well. If I've got more than one set of instructions that has to happen within a parentheses, I will use braces in that as well. I didn't realize that they were only supposed to be on the outside.
I think the only reason why that's a standard is because the curvy lines are hard to see. So if they're inside the brackets, they're less likely to be seen
Mm,
well. That's just my kind of my opinion
mm,
because I think braces and brackets could probably be interchanged.
mm. Yeah.
All right. So you could, so in this case, we have the brackets, the braces are outside the entire thing that's worked twice. And inside that is a bracket that's worked 10 times. And inside that is a parentheses that's
Right.
worked in the same stitch.
Right. It's very
And it
interesting.
really is just to make it easy to read.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right?
Yes.
All right. Any questions, Biz? There'll be a test when this is
I don't
finished.
I don't have any questions. I was just thinking of it just looks very interesting.
You're used to seeing it the other way, aren't you?
Well, I'm used to just having brackets, but like inner, because sometimes I have inside my brackets, I have more than one set of instructions that happens inside of one stitch or a repeat over a certain number of stitches. And I don't like reusing parentheses because it gets confusing because people are like, wait, where does the parentheses begin and end? So I'll
Yeah.
use the braces as another set of parentheses. But I usually will only do that one parentheses, one brace. I don't do a lot of them because at that point, if I've got that many repeats in there that have that many different things happening, I need to rethink how I'm writing out the pattern row.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of making it clear,
Mm,
right?
yes. Oh Lord.
So this is why we use repeats, right? So if we have that bracketed bit of instruction 10 times, that's what it would look like if you didn't use a repeat, right?
That would be crazy. I want to
There's
say
no way.
the day when I started reading patterns, this is what they felt like because I would get so lost. Like, what am I doing?
I know, I know. So that's why we use repeats. That is just insane.
It is.
All right.
It is for sure.
Plus, instead of printing out a 3 to 4 page pattern like I usually have, it would
Mhm.
probably be 5, 6, 7.
At least. Yes. Because some of those
Okay.
rows get really, really long.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Insane.
All right, now let's get to a
Right.
flat circle,
Flat circle.
right? So there's actually a if you're doing a flat circle, there's actually a formula that um determines the increases from round to round to make sure that your circle is completely flat. I'm going to skip ahead to the next slide because this will actually help. Um, the number of stitches in the first round actually determines how many stitches you're adding each subsequent round. So typically, if the flat circle is made with single crochet, it's you start with 6. If it's half double crochet, you start with 8. And double crochet, because it's twice the height of single crochet, it takes twice as many of them to get around the circle, right? So usually 12. Now that's just that's just kind of standard. A
Yeah.
designer decides for him or herself what those first rounds are.
Yes.
So you might have a single crochet round that's got 12,
Mhm.
which is fine. That's what the designer has decided is going to go
Mhm.
in that first round. Now, I will say, if you had that many, you're probably going to have a flat circle that's rippled.
Huh.
That's a lot of stitches,
That is a lot.
right?
They would have to be really, really, really um make a very concerted effort to maintain a flat circle with that by doing their increases extremely judiciously throughout that
Mhm.
because you can't just add do then if I've got 12 single crochets you can't have 24 single crochets right after that or you are for sure going to end up with a twirly squirrel.
Exactly. All right, now that we have that information, go back. We'll look at this is one of my tech editing clients. Her company name is Theodore and Rose. She does a lot of amigurumi.
Mhm.
So round one starts with the 6 single crochet. So as a general rule, if I want a flat circle, I'm going to maintain multiples of 6 as I go out. So you'll see that in round 2, she has single crochet increase in each stitch around. So that's twice as many. That's 12.
Mhm.
Now, here's where the formula starts. The number of stitches worked as a, let me see if I can say this right. The number of single stitches between increases increases by 1 in each round. So in
Mhm.
round 3, there's 1 stitch, then we do an increase. 1 stitch, we do an increase. In round 4, to maintain that increase of 6,
Mhm.
we add a stitch in between increases. So now we have 2.
Mhm.
In round 5, we have 3. And
Mhm.
you can go infinitely out just by adding 1 stitch in between the increases every round.
And if you ever get to a place where you feel like you're lost or whatever your ending number is always going to be divisible by the first number, by the 6. If
Right.
they're doing a steady increase where it's always 1 stitch in between where they increase there, it's always going to be
Exactly.
divisible by the number you started with.
Well, let's do math then. Okay, so look at round 3. So round 3,
Mhm.
divide 18 by 6, and you get 3.
3.
Yeah.
So, meaning when I look at that, I always think, well, I have to increase, and that's going to count as 2 of my stitches. So that means I only need 1 stitch in between my increases. So that means that's my 3 stitches. So 1 and then increase, 1 and increase. And then if
Hmm.
I'm going, say, by the time that I get up to round 5 and I divide that, I need 5 stitches. And if my increase takes up 2, that means I only need 3. So I need 3 in between my increases.
Now, something that Alana does in her patterns, I know a lot of amigurumi designers do this, so that you don't get that line that where you see where all of the increases have lined up
Yeah,
in the circle.
yeah.
She will actually probably around right about now, I think round 6, she'll start the round with the increase moved somewhere
Yeah.
else.
And it's usually right in the center of, like, so this says the 5 stitches on round 5. So she would probably single crochet in 2, and then she'll do the increase in that third one, and then she'll go, because the next row you're moving on to, you're going to have 4 in between your increases, but you
Right,
want to start it with where you're kind of cutting that original increase in half.
right, and then she puts that, it's at the beginning of the round and
Right,
the end of the round,
right,
right? So those add up to one of those increases.
right, exactly. Because then you'll finish with 2 on your last with your last increase.
Exactly. All right, hopefully that made sense. Then we see these stitches again. All right, so here's a flat circle. One of the repeats. This one isn't quite as long because we're only doing it 6 times instead of 10. You can see that it's hard to follow.
You could easily lose your place in that.
Yeah, and if you do digital patterns like I do, there's not an easy way to mark off what you've done,
Right.
right? So I do have my Apple Pencil. I do mark with that, but that's not always easy. So, all right, let's see here. Uh-oh, Dawn said she couldn't comprehend that. Dawn, are you talking about the oh, are you talking about the long form? I think that's what she's talking about. Okay. Now, I'm a big fan of charts. And if you're doing this is actually a chart for a blanket. You, there's no way you can chart the entire blanket, and there's no reason you should, right? Because
Mhm.
that's really just a repeat. What you see there are a couple of ways to indicate a repeat in a chart.
Mhm.
So the highlighted part, the grayed out part, is the repeat in the written instructions
Mhm.
that I'm going to execute across the row, right? And then you'll see off to the right-hand side, I have a line that shows you what rows are repeated to complete the blanket. And I
Sure.
tell you there. So that's actually, you can use the line across the bottom instead of the shaded area, just a line that says these are the stitches that are repeated.
Sure.
Um, but I finally figured out how to do that shaded area in Illustrator. Yay!
Yay!
That was a red letter day.
I bet. And now your body's like, haha, you got excited. Now I'm gonna make you
Yeah, shouldn't do that.
cough.
Okay. And in the next chart, I just, because it was just a simple 2-row repeat and
Mm,
the same stitch across the row, I just used that line to indicate which rows, rounds, sorry, this is in the round, were repeated to get to the round 14 and 15. So
interesting.
those are a couple of ways to show repeats in charts.
Yeah.
Now, my charts are not terribly intricate because my designs are not terribly intricate. But I actually did a pattern test. I did a number of pattern tests for Jennifer Olivares. Her patterns are incredibly intricate, and she works squares that, when they're sewn together or worked together, they create a larger pattern rather
Oh,
than just right. So what
fancy.
she'll do is she'll take those charts. She'll start with the motif.
Uh,
Then she'll show you in the chart how to repeat that in connecting squares, motifs together. Then
wow.
she'll show you how to connect that in a larger piece. It's crazy. And her charts are so tiny because there's
Oh,
so much in them. But she does repeats like this with the shaded area.
wow. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I can't
Oh,
imagine writing all of that out.
crazy. Right. Next, tips for reading repeats. So
Mm,
these for the experienced among us, these are going to seem logical, and why are you telling me this? But these are actually great to be reminded of. Excuse me. Read the line of instruction through before beginning. And I would add to that, read it out loud. Okay. So let's say in the middle of a long row of instruction, you have a repeat.
yeah.
Read that out as if the repeat weren't there, written there.
Uh,
Read it out so you know exactly what you're doing.
yeah.
It really does save time. And Biz, we can't say this often enough. Count
Oh, yeah.
often
Oh,
to
yeah.
make sure you have the correct number of stitches in the row around. I'm working on a blanket right now. And this one right side row, it's 180 stitches across, right? So in this one right side row, there were so many stitches, single stitches, and then a few special stitches, and then that same number of single stitches across the row.
Uh-huh.
Then it was followed up by just a row of single crochet. So I get to the next row where I have to go back to a certain number of stitches, special stitches, certain number of stitches, and I get to this one section and it doesn't work.
Oh, no.
Like, what the heck? It was one stitch off because in the single crochet section or the row, I had missed a stitch. Now
Oh,
I fudged, but that's why counting is so important.
yes.
Um, so that you can have all of the stitches lined up where they're supposed to be.
Yes. Well, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the first line, the read the line of instructions through before
Sure.
begin. even when I'm writing the pattern, because there I get just as confused writing it as some people do reading it. And so I will do the same thing. I will, especially if I'm looking at the sample of whatever it is I'm trying to write, I will do. And then I'm like, okay, so then when I want to start that again, I'm going to go back over here and do. I just take myself through the process of that repeat, because even as a writer, you can think one thing and write something else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that hasn't happened to me, Biz.
Oh, never.
Never. All right, let's see. Familiarize yourself with the abbreviations and symbols used in the repeat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, special stitches, what was this one? PS, because it was a special variation of a puff stitch. It
Oh,
wasn't a puff stitch, it's a variation of it.
okay.
So I had to recalibrate a little bit. And the
Mhm.
symbols, how does the designer use the symbols to indicate the smaller repeats
For sure.
in the same stitch, bigger part of it, all of that kind of stuff. So read through that before you start.
Hmm.
Break it down into smaller pieces. Um,
I have to
you
do this
know,
all the time,
yeah,
even on simple patterns, just because my reading and comprehension, like I'm a really fast reader, but I will say that I struggled with reading comprehension in school, and that has really come over into pattern reading for me, because I will whip through and I'll read something and I didn't understand what I read. So I have to go back and I've got to go little by little and break it into smaller and smaller pieces until I understand everything I'm reading. Um, I'm not dyslexic or anything like that, but there are times when things just move. They just, um, I, I read too fast, or I skim instead of actually reading.
yeah, and crochet doesn't lend itself to skimming
It doesn't. There are instructions
unless,
for a reason.
yeah, unless you're doing a really simple pattern.
Right.
Skimming is okay, but generally you want to be pretty specific.
Yes.
And then last but not least, I mentioned this before, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
We as designers want you to be successful.
Yes.
Now I'm going to put a caveat in here is I don't know if you agree with me on this one or not. That's okay. If you are using a free pattern on the blog, generally there's enough there to help you that we'll answer questions, but we're not going to redesign something for you, right?
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, even if you pay
And
for it, I'm not going to redesign it for you, because that's not, I mean, that's why that pattern is there, is because that's the design I want.
exactly, but support your designer by
Absolutely. Yeah.
spending time on the blog or paying for the premium PDF.
Yeah. And
But
I
don't
don't
be
have a
afraid to
problem
ask for
answering
help.
questions. I'm happy being a customer service. I don't mind that at all. But when it gets into, you're right, when people want to start saying, well, how how could I do this if I want to make it such and such a size? Or because I almost always try to, especially if it's just a simple repeat. Some of my really early work, the Irish wave blanket, that one I have given people extensive instructions on how to size it for you. And I would still have people be like, well, I want to make it such and such a size. How many? I'm like, honey, you
I
are going to
know.
have to figure that
Yeah.
out on your own. I just, I,
Well, yeah.
I
And
love
if I
you.
change
I appreciate you, but I can't
but
do this
that's
for you.
redesign,
Yes.
right? And I've gotten the question too. Well, you have this worked up in a worsted weight. I have DK weight. How big would it be, or how many stitches do I have to add?
I, you know,
That's a gauge thing.
yeah,
Just you got to figure it out.
you're
That's
going to
not my
have to
job.
play with it. I can tell
Yeah,
you this, if you put two DKs together, you'll have a pretty close worsted. But I mean, that's as good as I can go.
exactly. All right, that is the end of that presentation. That was so helpful. Yay.
Yay!
Um, So I don't know if we covered all of it. We did go in depth, but that is a little bit more information about repeats
Yeah.
and helping you be successful
Yeah.
in reading patterns. Because I really do believe with my whole heart that every crocheter should have a basic knowledge of reading patterns
For
because it
sure.
just opens up a whole world of designs that you wouldn't have
I
if you have
agree.
to rely solely on tutorials. So that's why we do our crochet skills.
Mm. Yep. We want to help you be better at, just having fun.
Well, Biz, do you have anything to add to our repeats
Not to the
episode?
repeats, no. No. I've been saving up what I've been watching, though, to tell you because I know you're going to be really proud of me.
All right. I- Hold on. What have you been watching?
I started NCIS again.
Yay!
Yay! And I'm through
Yay!
season
Oh my
two.
gosh, I love that.
Yeah, Kate just died. So now we're having to go through the stupid
Oh,
episodes where she's a ghost in everybody's mind. But other than that, Ziva just showed up, so it's getting better. So
so I'm
yeah.
a little bummed that the new NCIS Tony and Ziva is only going to be broadcast on Paramount Plus, I think.
Really?
I know, they did that with The Good Fight, right? So the sequel to Good Wife, they put that on Paramount
Oh,
Plus.
okay.
But yeah, that bothers me because I know why they're doing it. I'm
I
not
did happen to see
so
that. Boy, does Michael Weatherly look old. Oh, he was so adorable.
he's still pretty though.
He is. He's a
He's still pretty. And I'm very much excited for the end of this season. Well, I'm not excited for it to be over, but it looks like they've got a fabulous cliffhanger for
okay.
this season of NCIS. Oh my gosh. So excited.
Oh, that'll be good. I I have a tendency to drop off about season 5 of anything because me, I'm character driven, and if the characters are not developing in a way that like I'm still interested and I care anymore, because like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I dropped off after about season 4 or 5. It just got too silly for me. But I'm hoping I can make it through all of these seasons.
Well, they are worth it. They had some NCIS had some questionable seasons.
Uh
But I love it now. They found their groove. The characters work really well together. So I
yeah,
love it. I love it.
yeah. I'm interested to see how they morph all the characters and stuff like that, and it Gibbs was on there for so long. I'm interested to see how they phase that out. So, yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's been it pretty much. I've been watching random movies that, of course, nobody else in the family will watch with me. So, other than that, no. What have you been watching?
Baseball.
Baseball. Ooh, so speaking of baseball, on April 26th, uh, ESPN Plus or Disney Plus, if you've got either one, they're going to start showing the Savannah Bananas. We are so excited.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's this weekend.
It
Dang.
is.
Yeah, I'm so excited. That's gonna be
I
fun.
can't wait. I absolutely love watching them. They're so much fun. And these people that get on there and they fuss about, oh, they're making a mockery out of baseball. I'm sorry, but baseball's already made a mockery of itself. So let's just have fun with it.
Hilarious.
We'll take ourselves entirely too serious.
I know, right?
So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, me too. Yeah, I have to get on there and put it in my watch list, but I have it. It's right there.
Yes, yes. All right, so that's been pretty much it. It hasn't been exciting because I am either sleeping or coughing, and I haven't really watched anything. Pretty much because I've just been sleeping. But now I'm feeling better, so I'm starting to catch up on things.
Well, I can feel a coughing fit coming on, so I
Ah,
wonder if maybe we should
it's probably time.
wait. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next time you see us, we will be healed.
We will be healthy.
It'll be great. But thank you for bearing with us today. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and we're
All
gonna
right.
start next time you see us. We're gonna start talking about Mother's Day and fun things like that. So come ready to chit chat.
All right, Biz. I'm going to say bye to you, bye to everybody else. Thank you for joining us for today's There's No Crying in Crochet.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great week.